All right, guys, here we are. This is Megan. I look a little funny because I have my mask on, but we are here. Hi. We are here at Xochi's Picture Mart. And first, I'll just do a quick intro in case you've never watched one of our podcasts before, but presumably you are on the Pointing It Out podcast channel. You've found us and you've realized that this is a podcast about needlepoint. And I am Megan Holmes, and I own the Needlepoint Clubhouse here in St. Louis, Missouri, which is actually just up the street from where we're at. And together with my pal, Melissa MacLeod, who owns the Wool and the Floss, we've been doing this thing we call a video podcast for a little over a year now. And I am delighted to be here, as I said, at Xochi's. It's C-I-O-C-I. I had to ask for pronunciation twice to make sure I was saying it right. But we're here at Xochi's Picture Mart. And obviously, we're going to talk about framing and framing needlepoint. So I am delighted to have Keith and Kayla with me. Keith, we've decided is kind of a consultant bystander guy, but very knowledgeable. And Kayla actually owns the joint. So Kayla and Keith, Kayla, first tell me, so you're here, you're the owner of this place we call Xochi's. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I've been here for 6 years now.
Okay.
So I've had that much experience here. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts with an extensive art history and color theory background.
Oh, cool.
So all of those skills translated very well here. Because I can get you all the colors right for you.
I like that. And do you see like her, I was saying she's got like all the color going on. She looks awesome. So I look like the nerdy needlepointer and she looks like the cool artsy lady that's going to help us make our needlepoint look awesome. So perfect. And then Heath, what is your background?
I owned Xochi's Picture Mart for 11 years.
Okay.
And I started with like zero knowledge. And so it was trial by fire and learning it on the fly, and became really passionate about custom picture framing and just making sure that people understood that it isn't our egos that are driving like your design in your house, but I want you to be really happy in your house for forever. And part of that is helping you like frame your memories the way you want. It's just been really fun getting to know people through their pieces, and I love that aspect.
Yeah. So I think you make a good point that not these are memories, but for us as needlepointers, this is something that you put a lot of time and a lot of money into. And what we talk about is a lot on the podcast is finishing. So what are you going to do with your project when you're done with it? And we get a lot of questions about framing. And so from where I stand, framing has kind of a spectrum, right? So I can go to a very high-end art, super crazy high-end framing stuff. I can go here, professionals, we can do professional quality that is still a reasonable, reachable price. And then we can also go to the big box stores. We can just pick up a frame off the shelf and frame things ourselves. So I think what sometimes is intimidating about framing is that you think that you're going to spend even more on your framing than you've already spent time and money on your actual product and needlepoint. And I don't think that's the case. But I do think that it's worthwhile to go to a professional, to have a relationship with your local shop and have a conversation with them about what your end goal is, where you're putting it, and then put it in the hands of people that you know are professionals to then give you a product that you can feel really good about when you're done. So we have a woman here in St. Louis who I've met with before, who's actually what these guys helped me to understand is a restoration and preservation sort of
artist. I think is probably the best, because it is most certainly an art skill.
Right.
It takes a level of patience and talent that very few people have.
Okay, so thank you for that. So there are a few people who do this, and her name is Tina. She's here in St. Louis. So if you happen to have a piece of needlework that was maybe in your family for 100 million years, and you are really looking to like make sure that you're gonna, maybe you need it cleaned, maybe you need it in some way adjusted. I don't know what else would be, but repair work. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, then what you need to do is find one of these people, which no, not to be disparaging, but it's not the two of you. Right? I mean, that's fair to say. Yeah. Okay.
It is such a special skill, and when you actually meet someone who has it, you just like you only go to that.
Special experience, special qualification. So if that is what your goal is for a piece of needlework, look for an extra specialist. But if your goal is that you've stitched something, and we've got some samples here, and you just want to have a really good quality product, you want to have a great conversation, this is the place to come. Am I right about that? Okay, so let's talk about what makes framing professional and what makes it quality. So my guess is that it's the products that you use in the framing work, right? So can you go a little further in that kind of archival products that you use?
So, well, we use archival backing boards, mats, and then glass.
Okay.
So all of the parts are acid-free and of the highest standard quality, or of a high standard quality.
Right. So you mentioned something earlier when we were talking about taping, or is there gluing, or so all of those products, any of the things that you use to apply to, that's all archival, that's all
Or chemically inert, not like nothing that's going to harm your piece later on.
long term.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when people go to like the big box, we don't need to name any names, but or people, you just send it away and you have it framed. You can't really ensure that the products that they're using are archival. Is that fair?
I mean, sometimes you can, sometimes they'll find the person there that actually is like, this is what you're getting. And then sometimes you'll just get the person who's like was put in the department and they don't really know. And so we've seen 50-50. Sometimes it's like beautifully done, and sometimes it is look like it was put together by committee, and nobody really was taking charge and doing it right.
Nobody had the collective like 20 years of experience
Exactly,
that you guys have here.
Right.
And it's not fair for them to be put into that position,
Yeah.
to be asked to do something that they just don't have the expertise to do. Is that
I would
Right,
agree.
and in that case, I would ask questions so that if you are concerned with that, ask them. And if they start not giving you full answers or wishy-washy answers, then maybe that's not the right place for you.
And we also, it's okay if your goal is just to have an inexpensive, quick frame project.
Yeah.
You did some small project that you just want to give your grandma for Mother's Day or whatever it is. And you're fine if you just go to whatever store and just buy a quick thing, you pop it in and you're done. But what we're talking about here is I want to have good quality. We've talked about this before on the podcast. These are really special to me. So I wanted to come here, talk to some experts, make sure I was getting good ideas. So first of all, we're going to start at the top with blocking. So blocking is an issue in framing because, let's be real, frames are square. So if we have something that is not completely square, we're going to be in trouble, right? And so people ask me all the time, can you do blocking for me to take my piece to be framed? And by the way, we are in a shop, like things are happening. That was, I think, FedEx or UPS. So just bear with us, okay? So I worked on a frame with these guys on a needlepoint frame. And then I took them off. I still did a little blocking work. And so, Kayla, when I said to you, so what do you think about this? And does it need to be blocked? And can you talk a little bit more about, like, if I hand this to you and I say, I want this to be framed now, and you look at that and you say, wow, okay, that looks pretty square.
Yes,
Or-
I think this one right here looks pretty square. I personally can do the light blocking work that needs to be done. However, I'd say nothing can be 100% perfect now. And in this world, actually, for anything.
Well, that's a good point. That's a really good point. But if my piece looks like a trapezoid, which Melissa likes to say a lot.
Yes.
Trapezoid. Kind of, how would you talk a customer through that? If I came in and my piece was kind of totally wonky, what would you say? Oh, okay, well, you need to take it to a needlepoint shop, or do you kind of do what you can, or like, how would that proceed? You would say, I can't really put this in a frame the way this is.
Yeah, I mean, and we have the ability here to do blocking, but like we're not people who block stuff every single day. So like, I'm sure you are much like faster at getting it in. Like ours is much more of a process. We have to pull this stuff out.
You're just kind of, and also kind of minimally, what you just used the word kind of light blocking. And I
Yeah.
think that's a good way to
Yeah.
put it.
Yeah.
So okay, I guess the global concept here is go to your frame shop having already blocked or used a frame. So
Yeah.
that, because that's not their expertise.
Yeah, working on a frame is the single best thing that you can do to ensure the look of your piece is going to be in the zone of what you want. Because yeah, it's super important for the final.
And so to your point, thank you. To your point though, if you choose not to use a frame, because at our shops, we try not to be like frame police. So you have to work on a frame. But then come to our shop or come to your local needlepoint shop and say, I need to have this blocked, and we can do a little bit of work to it. And then you can bring it to them.
Yeah.
It's kind of going to be a multi-step process.
Yeah.
So we've established that this piece now is blocked pretty well.
Mhm.
And so now I'm going to say, here we go. What's the next step? So people ask me all the time, what about turn rows? So we kind of had a brief conversation, and what's interesting is Kayla doesn't realize that she answered the question exactly spot on, that we answer the question in the needlepoint shop all the time about turn rows. And what you said is, if you want the edge of your design to show, you need to give a couple extra rows, right?
I'd say even almost in general, 2 extra rows will help regardless of anything, unless you have blank space all the way around and it's just like a background. You don't necessarily have to give me 2 rows, but if your artwork creeps on that edge, 2 rows will help all of us immensely.
Yeah.
And what you also need to establish is, Kayla asked me, she said, well, is that blue your turn row? And in this case, it's not. We want that to show. And we can get to that in a minute, but you're just saying that I just need to tell you where the edge of my design is so that you know what you're working with.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned it earlier too, you're able to do whatever we want to do. So if I came to her and I had stitched all this blue and I said, I don't like that anymore, you could cover it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, easily encroach, but you really can't push back unless you have something to push back on.
And when they're not fully blocked or not 100% square, and even the ones that are blocked really well still will have a little bit of room. So giving us an extra row or 2 will help resolve that issue when it starts getting framed with a perfect square put around it.
Right. So I brought a few examples, and unfortunately they weren't done here, but they're just things that we had. So we looked at this, and up against this edge, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this on film, but you can kind of see here that there's a space here. So I want you to talk about, and this has to do with turn rows, but it also just has to do in general with the way this was framed and how I hope for this to be framed. So you explained to me that you can do a technique with the mat called
reverse bevel. Yeah. That's when instead of like every one of these has like the white border on the inside, this would be cut without a white border.
So typically, I think, and Kayla, you mentioned this, you said that majority of the time when you have a piece framed, you're going to see that bevel edge and it's going to have a white cut. Okay. So I don't know if you can see it very well here, but in general, when you look at a framed piece, you're going to see a bevel edge. So what you're saying is if you do a reverse bevel, which is what you oftentimes do, maybe not always, but oftentimes do when you do needlework, is you use that technique. And can you kind of help me? I'm sorry.
Sure. Well, so it allows you to get really close to the edge of the needlepoint without going over a whole lot of it. So for people who don't have like good borders or anything, it allows you to cover up the edge and hide all of the mesh that is, unsightly or like covers up a lot of the weird gaps that can happen.
Got you.
Especially if you're like a lumpier needle pointer, that can be really hard to put a mat over.
Okay, that's a good point. So the color is different though on the reverse bevel, so it's still white or it's not white, or I just can't see it.
You just don't see it.
Because you've cut it the opposite direction.
Yes. So
Gotcha.
and on this, it is flat. So the gap that's happening here is because there's this edge, and then once your stitches happen, it goes up.
Yeah.
So this here is
Gotcha.
flat across that, so it's creating a gap here.
Okay.
The reverse bevel doesn't give me
Takes
that
it
gap
opposite way.
because it goes right over these and it fills like the gap. It fills the gap.
Very cool. Okay. So now would you say, so this is a new thing for me, this reverse bevel, and I'm like, it's like mind blowing. So is this something that I would go into my my needlepoint shop? Would I go into my frame shop and I would say, I think I need a reverse bevel, or should the framer just say, like how does that conversation, I would never thought to ask that. So how does that work? So if you would just look at this with all of your experience.
That's just the standard that we do.
Okay.
And you have gone, obviously some other people are doing it different, and that's not wrong, just as long as it's put together correctly.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you are aware of that, ask those questions to your framer.
Sure.
And have that conversation and see what you like or don't like, and make sure if you are having that bevel that they adhere it properly so that you don't get that gap.
Yeah.
Got you. So to the point, so this piece here, I showed these guys and they're like, oh yeah, I can see they're, these guys are very trained eyes. And so, but I saw it too. I could see that there was a little bit of space here, and I don't love it. I was just kind of dealing with it because we had it framed and it's, whatever. But then they looked at this one, which is done. And again, I don't know how well you can see or how if I can get, but they both said, okay, well, that's done. And you said something about taking down the edges or something that maybe they were able to kind of just get a better.
I mean, I do a small thing for myself
Sure.
to avoid an issue like what you had.
Got you.
Because even that can happen when I do the reverse bevel.
Yeah, it's still.
But I still add an extra bit of tape to make sure that you don't get a gap.
Got you. So is it fair to say that when I get my needlework back from a professional framer, I should not have that? They should have been able to see, there really shouldn't be space. Is that right?
It's
Or it
definitely
depends
the
on the
goal.
person?
It's definitely the goal.
Okay.
But like, not every stitch is the same. We have a guy who does Bargello
Okay.
style with like yarn, and
Yep.
it's like that.
And those are wavy and
They're-
bumpy, but
They're awesome, but they are super hard to get flat, and that's just
Sure.
the way it is. And so you just kind of like,
however,
Try
he
to
is
set-
understanding
Yeah, we try to
of
set
knowing that his won't be
expectations.
perfect. He would just like it to look as best possible.
yeah,
Got you. So he understands that the nature of the piece that he's trying to frame
Yeah.
is not really possible to have that straight edge. But
yeah,
in your opinion, if the piece is stitched well, blocked well, relatively flat, it should look very clean on the
Yeah,
edges.
it
And you
should,
shouldn't
yes.
have any issues. Okay,
Of course.
all right, cool. So I think that establishes blocking, turn rows. The next thing, and you kind of just led me right into this, is so if I do some beading work, or if I do knots, or if I do, this is actually Diane's piece that I borrowed. So she's got some, to your point, things that are a little further off. So talk about like, would it be called spacers, or like how, and would that be something that I say to you, I think I need, again, being kind of a dummy in this world, do I need to come in with that knowledge and say, or do I just say, hey, I've got some work here on top and I just want to make sure you address that? And so then how does that conversation go?
Well, I personally would notice that right away.
Okay,
But
okay.
that is because I've been doing this for so
Right,
long.
right.
But if this is your first time going into a place, that could be something that you yourself as the client can use as a tester to see
Sure.
if, like, I think it's kind of an interview for you to come into a new framer to know if they're a good fit for you as well. Either you can wait a minute and then maybe ask that, and then if they know what you're talking about or already say, oh, I already added that in, that could be a good indicator for you.
Sure. So what does that mean for the piece? And I don't think this one has a spacer in it, and it probably
this one
wasn't.
does have a spacer.
Oh, it
It's
does.
actually very interesting because this one does have some like taller stitching in it. That probably the mat would have actually kept it away. But the beautiful thing about mats, not only do they, make the piece feel a little bit more full and a little bit more finished, but structurally, we can hide a lot of stuff in the gap between the mat and the glass. So like, you don't have that weird like smashing effect. It's beading and stuff sometimes you can't do with just a regular mat. But this one, like, they went the extra step and added spacers just to make sure that that wasn't smashed down. And I think that that's a really smart way to do it. Another way is to add another mat, like to do a double mat, and then you've added another color and you can beautify it, and you're also structurally making that, it's just kind of that weird magic that, a good framer would actually be able to be like, oh, we could do this, and that could
Give you suggestions. So
Yeah.
really what you're doing is just creating a thickness
Yeah.
between the needlework and the glass. Is that
Exactly.
right? Okay.
Exactly.
So a spacer, again, untrained eye, no clue what I'm looking for. Is that in, like, I just can't
Yeah,
see
so
it?
it's hidden from you. It'll be on the inside of the frame.
Yeah, under the rabbit,
Like
yeah.
it'll be under here.
Okay,
That just pushes your artwork back in the glass forward. So that there's a
Gotcha.
gap, just so that nothing's touching or scratching or UV filtering glass. That's
Yeah.
the biggest thing that would be on.
got you. So the other thing that I don't know the right word, I don't think, but so I came, full disclosure, I came in to just, I'll be honest, kind of check these guys out.
Yeah.
Some of our customers have come up here. It's right down the street. And I thought, let me just see. So I brought some of my things in and we just sort of had a conversation. It was immediately obvious to me that these guys knew exactly what they were talking about. I had no concern at all that they weren't completely professional. But he even took it to the next step. So he said something about, I think you said a fillet.
Oh, yeah,
Is that the right
so, yeah, like,
Now, would that help with spacing, I guess is my,
fillets can definitely add, they're usually like 3/16 of an inch thick, so that they'll add more space between, and it's a beautiful old school way to frame stuff. So like that may not work for like younger people in their decor, but like, for people who've been framing and have been doing it for a long time, that was very common. Just like on everything, you'd use a fillet and you dress it up and you'd add this extra layer. Essentially, it's like having a second mat. And where you and I had our issue is like, this is a paper finish mat.
Yes.
I don't know if it like you can see very well, but
Yep.
it reflects very gray. And she wanted to match her the blue and the fabric, the needlepoint,
right.
of which a fabric wrap mat was the only way to do that. And as we were looking at it, the only way to actually get the blue in there, like, was to use this more expensive mat. So like, you came up like, why couldn't I just do a blue border? I was like, that's an amazing way to get you the color that you want. If color matching is, the specific color that you need, and we were able to do that. And it saved you like $75 a piece. It was a very large savings. And I think it'll actually look better than being in the zone. Like being spot on is like always the best.
So he took me right next to my next point here on my little notepad. But so the point was we were looking at ways to, because I also wanted these to be larger.
You wanted them bigger, yeah.
And so we were looking at a fillet and then a mat and a double mat. And nothing was really like, really getting me. I was just like, yeah, that's good. So again, he says flat. So I personally did not know, remember, I'm the dummy here. I did not know that there was a difference between, and these are the two, right? I mean, these
Yeah.
aren't the same colors, but
Yeah.
so this is a fabric, is it fabric cover?
Yeah,
Or it's
yeah.
just like whatever, made of a fabric top here. And then this is paper. And again, the astute observation of the person who has done this for a bajillion years said, well, wait a minute, the richness of the color of your thread isn't able to be matched. So we were even out here, we were on the outside here, trying to do this, and it just wasn't looking right. And so
It was either gray or it was too purple. It was like too much indigo in there. And it just looked real weird.
yes, so it was taking paper and trying to match it with a silk thread is what the issue was.
Yeah.
And so he said, wait a minute, let's look at the silk. And then I was like, oh, beautiful. And then, as you stated, there's going to be an extra $150, which is what it is.
Yeah.
But then I said, well, wait, I wouldn't mind having this a little bigger. And then that was how that conversation went.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just bring up the point number one of the fact that, again, every step of the way, these guys should be giving you really good ideas. And again, I was able to leave and say, hey, I'll be back. He took down some notes and I'm back and I've got my border, which was a rather simple thing to do.
And it's awesome looking. It's going to be exactly what you wanted. And, for us, like, we just want you to be excited about it. And if any framer is pressuring you into framing something right now, like, just like pick your stuff up and walk away, because like sometimes these decisions need to actually be thought of more three-dimensionally. Because some of my first, like, if I would have pushed my first idea on you, you would have hated it, because
Sure.
I was doing the exact opposite of what you wanted.
Well, and the truth is, I can't expect them to have the same eye for my art.
Right.
You know, what I want from them is a professional conversation about, why don't you look at this? Why don't you look at this? So then I can come to my own conclusion of how I
Right.
want my art to look. And then they've just really helped me to get through that journey and get to the end. And then I'm so excited because I know I'm leaving this piece with these professionals who are going to make it just really sing. So, so we talked about the paper versus the fabric mat. I have, so I had a question, and we didn't talk about this before, but about scale. So something that you and I kind of talked a little bit about is I said, I want this to be big and I want this to be gaudy. And so do you suggest like again, this piece, will you kind of look at this and say like, okay, if you want this framed larger, maybe you should think of like a more narrow frame, or if you want this frame, like is there any sort of rule of thumb? Like I want a really fat frame, I'm seeing like 3-4 inch things back here and like, maybe that would look goofy. Like, again, is it eye of the beholder or is there kind of like a rule of thumb?
Well, a little bit of both,
Okay.
but also more towards eye of the beholder.
Okay.
Because like there is, I don't want to say rule of thumb, but there's a good proportion that
Sure.
I can fulfill to. However, all of us here think big frame on a small artwork looks great.
Yeah.
However, 90% of the people that walk in the door here will probably say no.
Because you like frames, you like that's
Like
part
we
of the
think
art.
that's fun. Like that.
That is pretty cool.
It's pretty baller.
Yeah.
It would be really hard to do on a piece this size and a frame this wide, but.
So
Like
then
not
do you
every-
have to proportionally have like multiple, excuse me for interrupting, but multiple mats or like a thicker mat or kind of,
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, like we would do something like that to make it look right, but there is no wrong answer for if you want it to be a size, I will figure out how to get it there and make it still look good.
look
Yeah,
professional?
I mean,
Gotcha.
so like about 3 years ago, I think it was, we had a client who was redoing their wine cellar and they'd done this needlepoint like coat of arms for their family.
Oh, wow.
And they picked a 4-inch wide frame and they didn't want any mats on it, but they wanted to embellish it with color. So we got a linen liner, which is like a stacked frame. It's multiple layers. And this thing's got like really, by the end, it was like 11 by 14, but by the end it was, I think
Like
it
we
was,
used to frame at least like that.
it was
wide, like-
huge.
Wow.
And the end result was so dramatic and so cool. And it's one of those things that if you would have asked me, was that going to be the way that we started it? It was the exact, again, an opposite way we would have started. And it's those conversations to like, what do you actually want? What is the final goal? And so if you do have a little bit of a vision, we can get you there. If you have no idea, we'll figure it out. Like
Sure.
it'll happen.
Sure, yeah,
But like
something
if
will come. to
you got an idea, like we can execute an idea very, very easily.
Cool. So the other piece from a products used perspective, and my question is about glass.
Sure.
So there's always, I feel like for me personally, as a very mild frame consumer, like, do you want regular glass or do you want museum glass? Or do you, so, and I'm always like, oh, regular's fine, like I used to when I was doing like maybe a framed piece of artwork. But really my personal kind of opinion about that has changed a little bit. And so
Sure.
can you talk? I don't know if you're able to tell.
It's hard to do it on video, but like 2 of the 3 pieces here have museum glass on them.
Really?
For
You can
us,
see that?
Yeah, for us, it's like completely like you're like dialed in museum glass.
Okay,
That's
I
great.
gotta tell what's what here. I cannot tell you guys. So what are you seeing that tells you it's museum glass?
So the 2 white frames both have museum glass on them. They are
Okay.
anti-reflective. The reason that you can tell that this is regular glass or UV filtering glass is because it becomes kind of like a mirror in the light, and you can see it there.
Oh, you can see that.
Yeah.
Oh
and-
my gosh.
and-
Yes.
and so
Okay.
it's so much less on museum glass. And if you have a 3-dimensional object, and truthfully, needlepoint is 3-dimensional art. It
Yeah.
may be on a 2-dimensional plane, but it's got texture, it's got life, and your knots and everything are part of it. So like museum glass allows you to not be like greeted with a reflection of yourself before you see the artwork.
Interesting.
And so I find everything with museum glass is more inviting to look at. And we encourage anything 3-dimensional to do it just in general. Unless if it's like this is a Christmas piece, maybe it's only going up for a month and you don't want
Yeah.
to spend the extra money. We totally get it. But if
Gotcha.
it's something that you love and you want to see every day, like that little extra bit of money is probably one of the best upgrades because it just allows you to see the colors of your piece better, enjoy your craftsmanship. It's
Gotcha.
really important.
So is it really just the 2 types of glass?
Anymore, basically, like
And is that excuse me, is it, I said museum, I don't
Yeah.
know.
No,
So
it's
is
called
it
museum glass.
glass, which just means that it's anti-reflective
yeah, so
or
there
regular?
we use 2 glasses here. museum glass and conservation clear, they both protect the piece the exact same amount.
Okay.
They are both like the most UV filtering that you can get. The difference is the museum glass has the anti-reflective film.
Got you. So if I go to whatever big box store and I pick up a frame that I'm just gonna throw my thing into, that just has regular glass.
That's just
right?
regular.
Just regular.
glass,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So really, even just the professional frame shop quality glass is gonna be better than I'm just gonna grab off the shelf.
Yeah.
But then taking it to the next level would be the anti-reflective,
Yeah.
so that I can really be sure that I like what you're saying, which is you want to be able to see every nook and cranny, because a lot of times I think people defer to not framing their work because they feel like they're going to lose something behind the glass.
Sure. Well, and like for like 30 or 40 years,
This was gonna be my
the
next
frosted anti-reflective glass was the like go-to if you were putting glass on it at all. Like a lot of the times in 70s, 80s, even in the 90s, there was no glass.
Well, that's, yeah.
And we prefer glass because it keeps everything cleaner and looking better.
Well, that was my next question. So, I mean, you're right. So like in the 70s when you had those tapestries,
Oh,
and
man.
now you see
Everybody
that.
was smoking around
Right,
them. They're
right,
just
right.
like
And
banana yellow now. Oh, it's the gross. It's so gross.
But you see those in an antique mall or whatever, a flea market now, and they've got like cobwebs kind of like dangling. So how, like, I mean, there's some allure to having that open now, though,
Yeah,
in my
for sure.
opinion, even because I've done all that work. So
Yeah.
are you doing anything with that glass now, Kayla? Or
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
There are
okay.
people, I mean, usually in that case, we're just stretching it like a painting
Okay.
on a bar
Okay.
Yeah.
and then put it in the frame.
Yeah.
And that's usually because the client either isn't going to put it up very long or they just envision no glass or don't want to spend a little bit extra money on it,
Yeah.
which is valid. And we can do that if that's what the look they
But kind of in your opinion, if I'm using spacer, if I'm using museum anti-reflective, so that you're really getting, you can still see the texture, you can still see all the, there doesn't seem to be a real reason to
Not
leave it
to,
open.
yeah.
Is that
Right,
fair?
right.
Because my next question is, how do you clean that? And so then I guess we go back to the restorative and repair.
That's when you talk to
person.
Tina.
Yeah, okay.
which in turn, you probably would be saving money if you would have just put glass on it
Right.
rather than trying to get it clean later down.
Yeah, like in Italy right now, and they started this like probably about like 12 years ago. All of their oil paintings used to be open to the elements, but
Right.
because like they cook and like they'll have their paintings in their kitchen, they still smoke inside. It is costly to clean the stuff, and if you don't take it to the right person, it can be very damaging to clean them too. So like that's when museum glass like really changed. The price came down because like they were making more of it because people were adding museum glass over their paintings, so they just didn't have to clean them as often. And museum glass, if it looks good on an oil painting, it'll look amazing on your needlepoint. Like it's built for things like this.
Yeah, I think, I hear you. So I want to kind of close and not with this. So these guys have very much established, in my opinion, a rapport for us in the fact that they are professionals, they know what they're doing. I will say that I'm kind of the needlepoint professional, right? Because I own the needlepoint shop. So the discussion now, what I want to end with is what becomes my responsibility in the role, in my relationship with the framer, and what becomes your responsibility. So for example, I bring these in and I have these like little, I did little L stitches, T stitches off to the side. So those are my waist knots. Those are relatively flat. So I showed these to Kayla and I said, what do you think about this? She goes, I'm not sure I've seen that before. So it's a flat waist knot. But there are people who use knots for their waist and away knots. So I come to you and I've got all these knots all around and you look at that and you say, so because you're not the needlepoint, right? So you can do a lot of things with this, but you don't want to go about cutting things.
Yeah.
Well, because at that point, then that would be me damaging your art.
Right.
And I'm not in the business of doing that.
Right.
Because that to me would be that I'm making your piece, like that would fall apart.
Well, sure. And so also you don't know, it is not your responsibility to know that whether or not that's going to affect, you just need to look at this and say, this is a clean piece that I can, and it's square and it looks good and I can take that. Because what they're basically saying is this whole piece is your art.
Yeah.
Right. So however you give this to them is the way they're gonna frame it. So if you have knots over here, how will that affect? Will you say like, oh, I can't do that? Or will you just assume that's part of the art? I mean, obviously this is a discussion and I'm making this a very like,
I mean,
kind of
if it's
blatant.
very bumpy, then that would be a conversation of, hey, these are like this. If I put a mat on here, like telling you what the options are, and then say, is that what you're wanting? If not, then you as who
Yep.
made this either you have to do the part to
Yep.
make them flat
Yeah.
then so that the mat can lay properly.
And, you know, even we had this discussion about metallic thread. So Kayla was saying she has a customer, and she's a customer of ours too, who uses all this metallic thread in her framing. And so,
Oh, sometimes they stick up.
so Kayla has recognized what we all recognize, which is a filament blend thread tends to kind of break and kind of stick up. So you now know that with that customer and you're kind of comfortable with that situation. But
Well,
again,
those are free stitches, and I will do a little trim so that they're not wild. in
Yeah,
the-
right.
because she can see that that's going to affect, and she knows now with
And
that customer, she's comfortable with kind of doing that management. So to that end, I had this piece framed, and you're not going to be able to see this on camera, but I'll just say, so I got this back. I was like, yay, it looks great. And I'm examining this edge because I've had issues, you know, with it not being clear. I get it home and I'm like, wait a second. There's a dog hair. There's a rookie hair in here. And it's like all the way down here. And then up here, I saw a little thing. So talk me through that. I mean, you gave me a really good explanation a second ago. So just of how, so you hope to be able to kind of observe that and say,
Oh.
I know that that dog hair isn't meant to be there.
Right.
And I will
Right.
pull it out.
Yeah.
Right. You can't see everything and you're not going to inspect this open work and whatever, but what Kayla said is basically, I can tell the difference between
A stitch or a thread and a dog.
Yeah.
or a crumb or a whatever. And
Yeah.
the expectation, as both of us being professionals, is that she's going to look at that and say, oh, that dog hair obviously
Yeah.
doesn't feel. We're going to get that up. So
Because that's less than 1 more minute of my time.
that's exactly right.
Right.
Like, that's not even 1 minute of my time
Right.
to know and realize that there's an outside element sitting in here that can easily be.
Yeah, and we get that you guys are working with your hands, they're in your space, you know, like, so like white things sometimes have a color gradient of like the oils on your hands to
Right.
them, you know, like we try to point all that stuff out, you know, kind of our thing is like, as long as you are able to like be able to roll a lint roller over top of the piece and it's not going to hurt it, it's not going to pull up threads, like we can do just about anything to kind of like, you know, make sure that the final result looks really nice. We just need your pieces to be, you know, secured. So, you know, a can of compressed air is not going to hurt it, or a lint roller. If it's, some of them get really pilly and weird and, you know, you'll have to like trim some of that stuff off. It's just, it all comes with what the particular piece needs, you know, and that's the time that we're going to put in.
That compressed air, that piece, that's a little nugget for me, because if I mean, I can own that.
Yeah.
You can buy that.
Yeah.
So what a great idea to have that at your, and maybe even just give your piece a little bit of a compressed air, like spray or scrub.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And just say to yourself, like, that would have probably taken that dog hair. Now, that dog hair could have been on my hand. It could have been on my sweater when I brought it.
It
Like,
could have been his dog hair, you know.
that's fair. That's fair. It happens. And I'm not trying to be an unreasonable
Yeah,
customer, but
sure.
what a great idea to have that, kind of give that your own once over, because then you can just make sure that you're giving it to them in the way that you hope that it's been framed. And again, we're professionals here and everybody makes mistakes and it's all a handcraft.
Mhm.
And so to that end though, this could be I just haven't taken it back to where I got it.
Yeah.
In fairness, but this could be taken apart, simply pulled apart, again, probably hit with some of that air.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and just, or tweezer or whatever it is to pluck that out of there, and it could be put back together for probably no charge would be my guess. If it was a,
It shouldn't be no charge.
Yeah, yeah. If we missed it, yeah.
if
that-
we
covered
assume
that,
that
yeah.
both parties are, you know, are doing their responsible
Right,
professional
right.
job here, then it would just be, oh, shoot, I missed that. We didn't see it together. We're gonna take that apart and make it right.
Yeah.
But if you look at this, if I look at this and I say, oh gosh, I just don't at all like that blue frame that I chose, that
Yeah.
I signed off on, my guess is that we'll have another discussion and maybe there's ability to adjust things, I
Yeah.
guess is what I'm
Yeah, for
saying.
sure.
But everyone kind of has to do their professional job.
Yeah. We don't ever want anybody being mad, you know, like we expect you to own like your part of that conversation, because like we are not pressuring you into framing.
Right.
So if you didn't like it, you obviously didn't, you weren't talking with us and being part of the process.
Yep.
But we always like to try to find a way to make it right. And,
Right.
Whether it's a discount on the new thing or something, because, like, we don't want you to feel like I just paid for 2 frames
Right.
and just leave kind of bitter. We want you to like feel like you did it kind of all at once, and
Yep.
And that you love it, because our goal isn't whether or not you're just happy today. It's 6 years in the future. We want you to be happy with it.
Well, yeah, of course. And you want, of course, just like we do, we want repeat business. We want you to say, wow, that was done so well. We want you to come back again.
Right.
So,
Right.
so the hope really is, I mean, I feel like this is just kind of just a down the street local needlepoint shop. I mean, we call it LNS, local needlepoint shop. This is just your local frame shop. This is the same kind of a relationship that you can build. They get to know you. They get to know what he knew that the Bargello is a little thicker. She knows that the customer brings in the metallic piece. I mean, what a wonderful way to be able to have your artwork and just taking the next step and loving it and having this relationship.
Yeah.
So is there anything that I mean, this is just me again, being the dummy. Is there anything I didn't mention or anything that you want to add that we haven't talked about? I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job here. I don't remember how long this has been going, but is there anything that we should add that you think that you'd like to leave as a
I would
parting
like
wisdom?
to say, if you've never had your needlepoints professionally framed, call a local frame shop first if you're not comfortable going in yet, and just have a discussion with someone and feel them out. Maybe you need to call more than one.
Yep.
But call someone local and see how they are, like what information they're giving you, and then decide to go see them, and then talk to them in the store. And don't feel like you have to do anything before. Like, if you're not comfortable, then get out of there.
Yeah.
Right. So what she's saying is
try
right.
it out and just have a conversation with someone.
And it's harder in COVID. We don't get to see each other's smiles and like get the vibe as easy. But I mean, Megan, you and I instantly clicked. And
Yes.
once we started talking, I was just like, this is so much fun. And I'm so glad that you know what you know about it and you educated us. And that's like the best relationship that you can have. Like
Awesome.
all of those things, it's wonderful. And so you are a value to a framer as well. So you know more than they do, even if they've been doing it for 50 years.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
it's build that relationship and you'll have fun for forever.
That's awesome. So I also hear what Kayla's saying, which is, okay, don't start sending me things from all over the country because I don't know how we're going to do this well. And I think that is a concern. And we did talk about that. Like, what happens if somebody in Boston sees this and they say, I think, sure, you'd love the business, but you're not going to be able to develop that kind of rapport
Right.
long distance as you would be able to have this kind of local discussion and having an in-person experience. So
Yeah. I mean, we're a small business, so we want to support our community.
That's exactly
and the
right.
people that are here. So I would encourage you to do that for your own community and who's around you.
We are very fortunate that we've had such an amazing show of support since COVID,
Right.
but that is not everywhere. And there are a lot of frame shops hurting. So if you have seen a framer and, give them a shot first before, giving us a call, like we would love to do it, like not telling you not to,
right.
but
right.
like also like
Shop local.
your locals, they need it. And,
Right.
and it'll help you feel more complete in your community.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's a
The
great
local store will probably give you a little more time and time and care
Yeah.
that is worth these that somewhere else might not.
That's right.
You'll
So-
get a different experience.
As always,
So,
shop local. We love it. We love that. So you guys, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
I hope that you've gained some information. I sure have. And if you're here on the channel, please hit subscribe. That helps us to continue to get awesome information out to you about needlework and all things framing and the auxiliary services that are out there. So thank you. Thank you guys. Have a great week and we will see you again soon. Bye now.